we're not going to give up. We have an opportunity to fulfill the first responsibility of government, to keep our people safe. And in the process, we can show the world and show ourselves that democracy works. We can come together and get big things done. When I look around and see such brave survivors sitting out here in the Rose Garden, public servants who devoted their lives to dealing with this, advocates who feel strongly and are pushing every day to make the rational changes, and courageous parents and family members, I know the progress, even in this most difficult of issues, is possible. So folks, this is just the start. We've got a lot of work to do. But I know almost every one of you sitting in the garden here, none of you ever given up. We're not going to give up now. The idea that we have so many people dying every single day from gun violence in America is a blemish on our character as a nation. Let me say to all of you, God bless you, but most importantly, the memory of all many of you have lost in the senseless gun violence. And now I'd like to hand it over to the Attorney General.
So many people dying every day in America. That's the title for the song created by Paul Beckman. Palu Rainbow
Song, I get a chance to see
March
some of you
8th,
after this
2021.
is over. Thank you.
Reading guitar chords to the A
Thank
and B. So many people dying each day in America. So many people dying in America due to gun violence. President Biden wants to eliminate. Yeah.
I stand here today not at a moment of tragedy, but in the midst of an enduring tragedy. So far this year, guns have taken the lives of an estimated 11,000 of our neighbors, friends, and fellow Americans. As the President explained, gun deaths in our country are occurring at a staggering pace.
So many people dying in America.
100 Americans killed every day.
So many people dying in America. Every day due to gun violence.
To solve the problem of gun violence.
Due to gun violence.
The Department of Justice alone cannot
Well,
solve
what's he
the
gonna do
problem.
about it?
It is
the
a
president's
problem
on
that
it.
we must all work on together in a collective effort to keep guns out of the hands
Keep
of
guns
criminals
out of the hands of
and
criminals.
save lives. But there is work for the department
Keep
to
guns
do,
out of the hands
and
of
we
terrorists.
intend to do it.
Gotta
Today,
do it
the Department of
together.
Justice is announcing several steps that will take
In any
keep
kind
guns
of
out of the hands
weather.
of criminals and reduce the risk of gun
Reduce
violence.
the risk of gun
First,
violence that will save lives
ensure
in
that we
America.
understand and measure the problem of criminal gun trafficking in a data-driven way. Over 20 years ago, ATF undertook a gun trafficking study. It then issued a report that provided information necessary to better understand and to combat criminal trafficking networks. No such study has been conducted since that time.
So many people dying in America
I
every
have
day.
directed ATF to
Due to
begin
gun
work on an
violence. Well, now we
updated
gotta
study of criminal gun
put an
trafficking,
end to that.
one that will take
Well,
into
starting
account
today.
the fact that modern guns are not simply cast or forged anymore, but can also be made of plastic, printed on a 3D printer, or sold in self-assembly kits.
Don't need no more gun kits,
Some of our
yeah.
best tools, including the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network and the National Tracing Center, are keeping up with the times. And we will analyze our
Don't
criminal
need no
cases
more
and
gun kits.
investigations
So
to
easy to
determine what
make.
they can show us
Can't be traced to
about
wherever
modern
they
gun
came in the
trafficking
wake
patterns.
of more
We
violence, more
expect that
deaths.
the lessons from
More
this study
deaths
will
in
help
America
agents,
to guns.
prosecutors, and policymakers tackle modern criminal gun trafficking enterprises. Second, we will close a regulatory loophole that has contributed to the proliferation of so-called ghost guns. Federal law requires that manufacturers mark all firearms with serial numbers so they can be traced if they are used in crimes. It also requires licensed firearms dealers to run background checks to ensure that individuals who are barred by law from purchasing firearms cannot do so. The emergence of ghost guns threatens both of these important law enforcement objectives. Currently, individuals can contain all or almost all of the parts they need to assemble a gun. They can put a working weapon
Don't want no
together
kids
in as little
assembling
as
guns
3
from gun
minutes.
kits in America.
Kits are aptly
Just
called
can't have that.
buy,
Can't have that. No, no, no.
shoot
And
kits.
then shooting other
Yet because
kids,
of a
they
gap
don't
in the
like.
ATF regulations,
Well, we gotta
these
put it
kits
into
may
that,
not be considered
right?
firearms. As a result, they are being made and sold without serial numbers and sold without background checks. Within 30 days, ATF will issue a proposed rule to plug that gap and to enable law enforcement to trace crime guns and to keep guns from being sold to those who cannot lawfully possess them. Third, we will make clear that statutory restrictions on short-barreled rifles apply when certain stabilizing braces are added to high-powered pistols.
Yeah.
Federal law requires
No
the
stabilizers.
taxation and registration of
Yeah.
all short-barreled rifles.
No gun kits,
It
yeah.
does so because these weapons are powerful, yet easily concealable. Currently, however, some manufacturers market and some
Don't make
individuals
guns so they
purchase
can be so
certain
easily
kinds of
concealed and
stabilizing
snuck in and
braces
killed.
that, when attached to a pistol, effectively convert it into a short-barreled
Don't turn
rifle.
a pistol
A
into a
weapon that
rifle.
is, in the words of the
There's
statute,
legislation in the works to stop
intended to
it.
be fired from the shoulder.
Go,
Such
Biden.
braces make high-powered
And your
pistols more stable and accurate while
people,
still concealed.
yeah. You're on the right
Within
track.
60 days,
At
ATF will issue a
last.
proposed rule
Go,
that
Biden.
will make clear that when a device marketed as a stabilizing device effectively turns a
Saving
pistol into a
lives at
short-barreled
last.
rifle, it is subject to the requirements of the statute.
Saving lives.
We will publish
Saving
model
lives
red
at
flag
last.
legislation for
Yeah.
states.
Saving lives at last.
Red flag laws, as the President has explained, allow family members or law enforcement to petition for court orders that temporarily bar people in crisis from accessing firearms if they present a danger to themselves.
Yeah, prevent
or
people
to
from
others.
accessing firearms if they're a
19
danger to
states
themselves
and the
and
District
to
of
others.
Columbia have
We
already
don't
made
want
this
them
important
going
step.
and killing your
Within
mother.
60 days,
Whoa,
the Justice
yeah.
Department will publish model legislation
Whoa,
that will
yeah,
make
go
it easier
Biden.
for states that want to craft laws permitting such emergency
Well,
orders
give them 60
to do
days.
so.
They'll tame the Wild
Fifth,
West
We will
in the
empower
21st
our
century
communities to combat
and the rest. Go,
gun
Biden.
violence.
Yeah. Gun
We all
legislation
recognize that although
finally
law enforcement plays an important role, gun violence
to help
is
stop
not a
all
problem
the
that law enforcement alone can
kills.
solve. Communities are an essential partner, an asset, and a source of resources and ideas. Those who are closest to the problem are a critical part of solving the problem. To that end, the Justice Department will make available over $1 billion in funding through over a dozen grant programs that can be used to support evidence-based intervention strategies for reducing gun violence. Such strategies include, but are not limited to, street outreach, violence interrupters, and hospital-based violence intervention services. I have directed all of our grant-making components to make community violence intervention and prevention a priority. Finally, none of these measures or any of the other critical law enforcement work the department does with respect to illegal guns can be effectively carried out without strong leadership. That is why the President has nominated David Shipman to be the next ATF director. Mr. Shipman has come up through the ranks, spending 25 years in the trenches fighting illegal gun trafficking and criminal enterprises. His extensive experience as an ATF agent will prove invaluable, and I look forward to working with him. Looking out at many of you is not only a reminder of the tragic toll that gun violence takes on our communities, but also of the resilience and determination that it will take to make our communities safer.
The toll that gun
The
violence
Department of Justice
makes in our
shares your
communities.
commitment and that of the President and of the Vice President
That's the title of
to
the song.
stopping the plague of gun violence
By
and
Paul Beck and
saving the
Palu the song.
lives of those we love.
Created April 8th, 2021. Using guitar codes G7 and A7. The toll that gun violence takes on our communities. The goal that gun violence makes in our communities. The toll it takes, yeah. The toll it makes, yeah, in our communities. In the USA. And other lands, other countries, every day there's violence, gun violence, yeah.
Her district when she served in Congress several years ago. This one is one big important of many big important events today. Also dramatic testimony in the Derek Chauvin trial. We'll get back to that momentarily. But let's discuss what we just heard. New gun control measures and new promises from the President of the United States. Joining us is our Chief White House correspondent,
The toll
Caitlin
that
Collins, our Chief
gun
Political
violence
correspondent,
makes in our
National Justice correspondent,
communities.
Evan Perez. Caitlin, let me start with you at the White House. Proof that elections, it's a cliche, but it's also true. Elections do have consequences. This, day 78 of the Biden presidency. The new president promising several executive actions, unrolling executive actions designed to take some guns off the market within 30 or 90 days. They want some new regulations. And also, this is more aspirational because at the beginning of his remarks, I thought was interesting, he acknowledged the tough political climate, but he said, I will do what I can with executive power, and I wish Congress would finally act on several other measures.
Biden.
Yeah,
Use
he's
your
still calling on
executive
Congress
power.
to act, but I
Go
think what we
Biden.
recognize and what he
that
publicly
executive power.
conceded in that first press conference
Yeah,
we
the
had a
toll
few weeks
that
ago
gun
was that
violence
it's going
makes
to be
in our
really tough to get any kind of
communities every
legislation
day.
passed, and there is no appetite right now
Finally,
to get those
President
House-passed
daring
bills
enough to
on
do something
Capitol
about it.
Hill through the Senate. And so what he is calling for there, isn't really going to, it's not likely to happen anytime in the near future. So instead, he is focusing on these executive actions, but of course, the problem with executive actions is they're pretty limited. And this is something that President Biden actually even argued about with Vice President Harris, of course, when they were both candidates on the stage about what you could do as president when it came to guns. And so what he is doing here is he is proposing these new rules that are going to go through the Justice Department before they actually become rules. But one is he said something that we did not actually hear from officials yesterday, which is that those ghost guns, those kits where you can essentially build a gun from scratch and they don't have serial numbers, you don't have to go through background checks for them. He said he does want them to be classified as firearms, and so he wants to have this rule proposed here
Classify
where
gun
they
kits
could
as
try to curtail the
firearms.
proliferation
Put them under
of
the
those. And the other rule is that they
regulations,
want
all
to have a regulation for those
firearms
stabilizing
application.
braces. This is something that we saw happen
Go
in that recent shooting in
Biden.
Colorado. Basically, you can put it on a
Yeah,
pistol
what
and
a
it
great
makes
president
your
after
shot
Trump.
more accurate. And so he
Yeah,
wants
go
those to be
Biden.
regulated more often
The
than they
toll
are
that
right now.
violence,
And
gun
of course, the
violence
other
makes in
steps
our
are more
communities in the
symbolic,
USA
posting these model
every
red
day.
flag laws
Go
for other
Biden.
states to follow. And so these aren't really
toll that
modest
guns
compared to
take.
what the
Gun
actions that
violence
President
in our
Biden promised on the
communities.
campaign trail. And so where that goes from here, that remains to be seen, because he did
Use your
acknowledge there's a
executive
lot more
powers
work to
to
be done.
do the most good you
But these
can.
are the steps that he was
Now, you're
taking
a
after he was
sitting
facing pressure
president.
to do something,
You're
to do
the
anything
man.
on guns
Go
after those shootings that we saw
Biden.
happen in Georgia and in
What a
Colorado.
president. Yeah.
Is
Good
absolutely right.
parade.
So much the federal government
Whoa.
can do for executive action, but it does happen. If you have a president
Look
who
what
wants
he's
to talk
doing in
about
his
this
early
issue,
presidency.
President Trump, back in his days, met several times with victims of gun violence and promised them quite a bit. In the end, the administration only changed the regulations about those so-called bump stocks. One of them used in the Vegas shooting. When you have a president, a vice president,
Trump
attorney
did so
general, and
little
now
to
a
help
director of the
victims
Bureau
of violence
Firearms,
from
Mr.
gun
Shipman
shootings.
has confirmed
So
who himself
little.
is a gun control
Now look what
advocate.
Biden's
How much of a difference does that make?
doing. He's doing
Leadership at the top of these important
so
agencies.
much more.
Well, yeah.
He's
so
opening
if
up
you
the
have
door.
a president who says he wants to do it and will not yield to the pressure from groups like the NRA, then you can have certain things done. Certainly, you can do these
Yeah,
executive
don't
actions,
yield to the
but on
pressure
other
of the
hand,
NRA.
that come to mind.
Next, they'll be asking you to yield to the pressure of the Ku Klux Klan. Biden's a strong enough president not to do that.
Not going
He's
to
the
have a
man.
time going through the nomination to expect people like Joe Manchin, people, some senators perhaps from pro-gun states are gonna think twice before voting for someone who is out there calling for strict restrictions on guns. That's going to be a tough fight for the
clearly they're ready to make that fight. So we'll see how that unfolds.
Yeah, they're willing
that the
to
president
fight.
is talking about
Stop
is
the
one of
violence.
those arm braces.
Stop the
a
total
regulation
violence
for
of
that,
gun violence
which,
in our
as Katie
community.
pointed out, the sheriff
That happens every day.
using to make a case
The
against
total
him
gun
should
violence
go
mix in our
accurately. What that was a
community.
regulation
In
that
the
actually
good
the
old
Justice Department
USA.
tried to put into place
Yeah,
just in the last
put up
few
a
months
fight.
of the
Biden administration.
Trump administration,
Yeah.
and they faced tremendous pushback from the gun lobby, from gun rights groups, and they withdrew it. So
Stand up
yeah,
to all those
now,
gun rights
I suspect
groups.
that you're going to get a similar
Tell
pushback.
them what
We'll
it
see how
is
they-
that just
how they
cannot
bring it about. As you said,
happen. That
if
you
you
gotta
have
start
leadership
limiting
here at the Justice Department and
all
the
the
White
gun
House that wants to do
violence.
something,
Gun
you
violence.
can't get something
The
done.
toll it takes on our
And
community.
I've asked you through this many times, Covering the White House, your times covering Capitol Hill, is do you have sustained focus on the issue? Because let's just look, we have a map here. This is just in the 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks of March. 21 mass shootings across the United States during 2 weeks in March. 2 weeks in March. The President of the United States himself noting 850 people were shot in the United States of America, victims of gun violence in the 1 week between Georgia and Boulder, Colorado. And we can put up this polling. This is from ABC News at Ipsos back in late March. What's the higher priority, enacting new gun laws or protecting the right of gun owners? Well, it's a 66% issue out in the country right now.